The Galactic Concordat had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They controlled 900 worlds and commanded fleets that could darken the skies of any planet. No species had ever challenged them and survived. They had crushed rebellions, erased civilizations, and written themselves into history as the eternal rulers of everything that existed. When they found humanity, they were not impressed. Humans were soft. They had no claws, no armor, no venom. They could not see in the dark or survive in vacuum. They needed to eat every few hours and sleep for a third of their lives. By Concordat standards, they were barely worth cataloging. But humans had one quality that made them useful. They could survive almost anywhere. They could adapt. They could work. So the Concordat allowed them to exist as a labor species, spreading across a handful of colony worlds under strict supervision. Verdant 7 was one of those worlds. It was a green planet covered in forests and rivers, home to 6,000 human colonists who farmed the land and mined the mountains. They lived simple lives. They raised their children. They caused no trouble. Then the integration program began. The Concordat had decided that human children showed promise. Their brains were adaptable, easy to mold. If taken young enough, they could be trained as servants, translators, or soldiers. The program required each human colony to surrender 20% of their children under the age of 10. Verdant 7 refused. The colony leader was a woman named Sumi. She was 60 years old with gray hair and kind eyes, but her voice was iron when she spoke to the Concordat representatives. She told them that humans did not give away their children. She told them that every parent on Verdant 7 would die before they allowed a single child to be taken. She told them to leave. The Concordat did not negotiate with labor species. 3 days later, an orbital strike fleet arrived. They gave no warning. They offered no second chance. In 17 minutes, they reduced Verdant 7 to ash and glass. 6,000 men, women, and children burned. The forests became deserts. The rivers boiled away. Nothing survived. Nothing except was 26 years old. She had grown up on Verdant 7, the daughter of farmers who had taught her to love the land and respect hard work. She had trained as a mining engineer and spent her days piloting cargo shuttles through the asteroid belt, hauling ore back to the colony. She was 3 hours away when the strike happened. Her shuttle's communication array picked up the emergency broadcast. She heard the screaming. She heard the roar of plasma fire from orbit. She heard her mother's voice calling her name, telling her to run, telling her to survive. Then she heard nothing but static. Sat alone in the darkness of her shuttle for a long time. She did not cry. She did not scream. She simply sat there, staring at the blank communication screen, feeling something cold and heavy settle into her chest. She thought about her parents, her little brother Minu, who was only 8 years old and loved to chase butterflies through the wheat fields, her best friend, who had been planning her wedding next spring, her neighbors, her teachers, the old man who ran the general store and always gave her free candy when she was a child. All of them were gone. Had always been a quiet person. She did not like conflict. She avoided arguments. She had never been in a fight in her entire life. But as she sat there in the dark, she felt something change inside her. The grief was there, but it was transforming into something else. Something harder, something sharper. She turned her shuttle around and began to fly. For the next 2 months, disappeared. She sold her shuttle and used the credits to buy information. She learned how to access Concordat databases. She found the names of everyone involved in the Verdant 7 decision. She memorized their faces, their schedules, their security details. She also learned other things: how to move without being seen, how to disable alarm systems, how to kill quickly and quietly. She found teachers in the lawless regions of space, criminals and mercenaries who asked no questions as long as she paid. She learned everything they could teach her. Then she went to work. Her first target was Senator, a high-ranking Concordat official who had personally approved the Verdant 7 strike. He lived on the capital station in a luxury apartment protected by 12 elite guards. No one had ever breached his security. He believed he was untouchable. Reached him in the middle of the night. The guards never saw her coming. She moved through the ventilation system, disabled the sensors one by one, and eliminated each guard with silent precision. When she finally stood over Senator's bed, he woke to find a human woman staring down at him with empty eyes. He tried to call for help. He tried to offer her money, power, anything she wanted. He begged for his life. Listened to his begging. She thought about her little brother Minu, who had probably begged too as the fire came down from the sky. She thought about all the children on Verdant 7 who had never been given a chance to beg. Then she did what she had come to do. She left a piece of paper on his chest with a single word written on it: remember. The Concordat discovered the body the next morning. They reviewed the security footage and found nothing. They analyzed the crime scene and found no evidence. They had no idea who had done this or how. But they knew one thing. Senator had authorized the Verdant 7 massacre. This was not random. This was revenge. 3 more officials died over the following weeks. Each one had been involved in the Verdant 7 decision. Each one was found with that same piece of paper. Remember. The Concordat convened an emergency council. They identified from colony records and classified her as a Threat Zero entity, the highest danger level in their system. They could not believe that a single human, a member of a labor species, could cause so much damage. But the evidence was undeniable. They decided to send their best. The Brotherhood was the most feared hunter team in 3 galaxies. They had never failed a mission. They had killed warlords, assassins, and monsters that could tear ships apart with their bare hands. One grieving human woman would be nothing to them. The order was given. The hunters began their search. And somewhere in the darkness of space, smiled when she heard they were coming. She had been waiting for this. The senators and officials were just the beginning. She wanted the Concordat to send their warriors, their champions, their best killers. The Brotherhood had existed for 800 years. They were not soldiers or mercenaries. They were something far more dangerous. They were hunters, born and bred to track and kill the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Their leader was called. He stood 3 meters tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. His species had evolved on a world of eternal darkness, where survival meant becoming the perfect predator. His scales were thick enough to stop plasma bolts. His claws could tear through ship hulls. His eyes could see heat signatures through solid walls. In 300 missions, had never failed. He had killed psychic warlords who could crush minds with a thought. He had hunted silicon-based hive creatures that spread across entire moons. He had tracked down targets that entire fleets could not find. When the Concordat sent him after one human female, he almost laughed. His team consisted of 6 other hunters, each one a perfect killing machine from a different conquered world. There was his second in command, whose species could move in complete silence and had reflexes 3 times faster than any human. There was a tracker who could follow a scent across star systems. There were 4 others, each one specialized in death. They boarded their ship, the Silent Verdict, and began their hunt. Finding took them 3 weeks. She had covered her tracks well, better than expected from a member of a labor species. She had used false identities, stolen ships, and moved through regions of space where the Concordat had little presence. But no one could hide from the Brotherhood forever. They traced her to a derelict station in the outer reach, a lawless area at the edge of explored space. The station was old, built by a species that had gone extinct long before the Concordat rose to power. It floated alone in the darkness between stars, far from any shipping lanes or patrol routes. The Silent Verdict approached slowly, studied the station through the ship's sensors looking for traps or ambushes. He found nothing, The station appeared abandoned. Life support was failing. Frost covered the corridors. There was only one heat signature on board. One human, Deck 7, no weapons, stood beside him, her silver eyes narrowing. She was the most cautious member of the team, always watching, always thinking. She had survived this long by trusting her instincts, and her instincts were telling her something was wrong. "This feels too easy," she said quietly. "She knows we are coming. Why would she wait here with no weapons and no way to escape?" Bared his fangs in a smile. "Because she is human. They are emotional creatures, fragile. She probably thinks she can reason with us or beg for her life. She does not understand what we are." "The reports say she killed 12 elite guards without triggering a single alarm," reminded him. "She has eliminated 7 Concordat officials in 2 months. This is not a fragile creature." Shrugged his massive shoulders. "She caught them by surprise. She will not catch us. We are the Brotherhood. We have killed things that could destroy planets. One human is nothing." He gave the order to breach. The team moved through the station in tactical formation, their weapons ready, their senses alert. The corridors were dark and cold. Ice crackled under their feet. The only sound was the distant hum of failing generators. Deck by deck they advanced. They found no traps, no alarms, no resistance, just empty rooms and frozen hallways. The human's heat signature remained steady on Deck 7, unmoving as if she was waiting for them. Felt his confidence grow with each step, was being paranoid. This human had gotten lucky against soft politicians and lazy guards. She had never faced anything like the Brotherhood. They reached Deck 7 and found a large cargo bay at the center. The doors were open. Inside, a single figure sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed, her breathing slow and steady. She was smaller than expected, thin, pale. She wore simple clothes with no armor, her hands were empty. She looked like she was meditating, completely calm despite the 7 apex predators surrounding her. Stepped forward, his claws clicking against the metal floor. "Human, you have been sentenced to death by the Galactic Concordat for crimes against the state. Do you have any final words?" Opened her eyes. Had looked into the eyes of countless prey over the centuries. He had seen fear, desperation, rage, and madness. He had seen creatures beg and creatures fight. He thought he had seen everything. But's eyes held something different. They were dark and calm, like deep water hiding something beneath the surface. There was no fear in them, no anger, just a cold, patient emptiness that made even pause. "I was hoping you would come in person," she said. Her voice was soft, almost friendly. "I left the senator alive long enough to ask questions. He told me about your Brotherhood. He told me how you hunt, how you think, what you fear." She stood slowly, her movements unhurried. "He also told me you have never hunted a human before." Laughed. It was a harsh sound that echoed through the cargo bay. "Is that supposed to frighten me? I have killed creatures that could tear stars apart. What can one human do?" Smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Your people evolved as predators," she said. "Perfect hunters in a world of darkness. You have never known what it feels like to be prey. You have never had to run, to hide, to survive against something stronger and faster than you." She took a step back, toward the shadows at the edge of the cargo bay. "Humans are different. We did not evolve as predators. We were small and weak, surrounded by things that wanted to eat us. We survived by being clever, by being patient, by never ever giving up." The lights flickered. "On our home world, we used to hunt by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We could not outrun them. We could not overpower them. But we could keep going long after they had given up. We call it persistence hunting." The lights flickered again, then went out completely. "I have been waiting here for 3 weeks," his voice came from the darkness. "I know every corridor, every room, every shadow in this station. I have prepared traps you cannot see, paths you cannot follow. I have turned this place into a maze." activated his thermal vision, searching for her heat signature. But the station was cold, so cold that he could barely distinguish anything. And somehow, impossibly, he could not find her. "You are hunters," his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "But tonight, you are going to learn what it feels like to be hunted." Something moved in the darkness. The first hunter died before he understood what was happening. His name was, and he was the youngest member of the Brotherhood. His species could see in complete darkness and move faster than most creatures could think. He had killed over 100 targets in his career, and he had never once felt afraid. When the lights went out, he activated his night vision and scanned the cargo bay. He saw nothing unusual. The human had disappeared into the shadows, but that was not a problem. She could not hide from his eyes. She could not outrun his speed. She was just playing games. He heard something click beneath his foot. The explosion was small but precise. It did not kill him instantly. Instead, it shattered his leg and sent him crashing to the floor. He screamed in pain and surprise, his weapon sliding away from his hand. Roared, "Report!" Tried to answer, but something moved in the darkness beside him. He turned his head just in time to see a blade flash toward his throat. The human had been waiting beside the trap, silent and patient, like a spider beside her web. The cut was clean. Died without understanding how a creature so small and slow had gotten so close without him noticing. Chaos erupted in the cargo bay. The hunters spread out, their weapons firing into the shadows. Bellowed orders trying to establish formation, but the darkness was too complete and the station was too unfamiliar. Another trap detonated somewhere to the left. A hunter named stumbled as the floor collapsed beneath him, dropping him into a lower level. He landed hard, his armor cracking. Before he could stand, he heard footsteps approaching in the darkness. "She is down here," he shouted into his communicator. "Deck 6, I see." His transmission ended in a wet gurgle. Moved through the chaos with her weapon raised, her silver eyes scanning for any sign of the human. Her species could hear heartbeats from 30 meters away, but the cold was doing something strange to her senses. Everything sounded muffled, distant, wrong. She found crouched behind a support pillar, his tracking instincts useless in this frozen maze. His breathing was too fast. His eyes were too wide. She had never seen him afraid before. "This is wrong," he whispered. "She should not be able to do this. Humans are slow, weak. How is she moving so fast?" Grabbed his arm. "She is not faster than us. She is using the environment. She knows this station. We do not." A scream echoed from somewhere above them. Another hunter down. Made a decision. "We need to regroup, fall back to the ship. We can seal the airlock and burn this whole station from orbit." They began to move, but the corridors had changed. Doors that had been open were now closed. Passages that had been clear were now blocked with debris. The human had prepared this place like a trap, and they had walked right into it. Heard something move behind her. She spun, her weapon ready, but there was nothing there. Just shadows, just cold air, just the distant sound of dripping water. Then she heard a voice, soft and calm, echoing from the walls. "Your people never had to learn fear. You were always the strongest, the fastest, the deadliest. You have spent your whole lives believing that nothing could hurt you." Fired blindly into the darkness. The shots illuminated nothing. Humans learned fear before we learned anything else. We were born into a world that wanted to kill us. Every shadow could hide a predator. Every night could be our last. Fear is not weakness for us. It is wisdom. It is survival. Something clattered in a corridor to their right. Turned toward the sound, and in that moment of distraction, a wire snapped tight around his ankle. He was yanked off his feet and dragged into the darkness before could react. She heard him fighting, heard his claws tearing at something, heard his voice rising in panic. Then she heard nothing. Ran. She did not think about the mission or the Brotherhood's honor. She did not think about anything except getting back to the ship. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking. She had never felt anything like this before. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with. The massive hunter was bleeding from a wound on his shoulder, his armor cracked, his eyes wild with something she had never seen in them. Fear. "How many are left?" she demanded. "Three, you, me, and Malik's voice was hoarse. "The others are dead. We need to leave, now." "No," bared his fangs. "I will not run from a human. I will not let the Brotherhood be shamed by one small creature." "This is not shame, this is survival." But was already moving, following the sounds of combat from somewhere ahead. Hesitated, then followed. She had served beside for a century. She could not abandon him now. They found Malik's body in a maintenance shaft. He had been killed quickly, a single wound through the heart. The human had caught him alone and given him no chance to fight back. Stared at his fallen warrior, his claws digging into the metal walls. He had lost 6 hunters in less than an hour. 6 of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, killed by one human who weighed less than his arm. "How," he growled, "how is this possible?" A light flickered at the end of the corridor, and there she was. Stood in the glow of a failing emergency light, a crude blade in her hand, blood on her clothes. She looked tired but calm. Her eyes met without flinching. "Do you understand now?" she asked quietly. "You have spent your whole life believing that strength and speed are everything, that the strongest creature always wins, but that is not how the universe works." She took a step forward. "Humans conquered our planet not because we were the strongest. We conquered it because we never stopped, because we could plan and prepare and wait, because we could turn any environment into a weapon, because when something hurt us, we did not run away. We learned how to hurt it back." Charged, he moved with all the speed and power of his species, his claws extended, his fangs bared. He had killed 1,000 creatures with this attack. Nothing had ever survived it. Did not try to dodge. She simply stepped to the side at the last moment, letting his momentum carry him past her. Her blade flashed once, cutting deep into the joint of his rear leg. Stumbled, roaring in pain. He spun to face her, but she was already moving, staying close, staying inside his reach where his size became a disadvantage. She was not trying to overpower him. She was bleeding him, tiring him, using his own strength against him. The fight lasted 4 minutes. Had never fought anything for 4 minutes. His battles were measured in seconds. But this human would not stay still, would not let him land a killing blow, would not give up no matter how many times he struck her. By the end, he was on his knees, his armor shattered, his body covered in a dozen wounds. None of them were fatal on their own, but together they had drained him, broken him. Stood before him, breathing hard, her blade red with his blood. "Tell your masters what happened here," she said. "Tell them I am coming for all of them. Tell them what a human can do when you take everything from her." She turned and walked away, leaving bleeding on the cold metal floor. Found him there minutes later. She dragged him back to the ship and sealed the airlock. As the silent verdict pulled away from the station, she looked down at her broken leader and wondered what they had awakened. The hunters had come to kill a grieving woman. They had found something else entirely. And the screaming began. The silent verdict drifted away from the derelict station at emergency speed. Inside, worked desperately to stop bleeding while the ship's medical system struggled to keep him alive. He had lost too much blood. His armor had been torn apart. His body was covered in wounds that should not have been possible. The third survivor was a hunter named, who had escaped through an airlock during the chaos. He sat in the corner of the medical bay, his massive frame curled into itself, his eyes staring at nothing. He had not spoken since they left the station. Had never seen a member of the Brotherhood in shock before. She had never thought it was possible. "How?" whispered his voice weak. "How did she do this?" Did not answer. She was thinking about everything they had learned about humans, labor species, fragile, slow, no natural weapons. They were supposed to be harmless. They were supposed to be manageable. But no one had ever pushed them this hard before. She remembered something from the Brotherhood's ancient records, from the early days when they had hunted across dozens of worlds. There were certain species you did not corner, certain creatures that became more dangerous when they had nothing to lose. The records called them desperation fighters, and they warned that sometimes the weakest prey could become the deadliest enemy. Humans had been kept comfortable, given worlds to farm, allowed to live peacefully as long as they followed the rules. No one had ever taken everything from them before. Verdant 7 had changed that. An alarm chimed on the navigation console. Moved to check it and found a new message displayed on the screen. It had been uploaded directly to the ship systems during the fight, bypassing all their security protocols. It was a list. Names, hundreds of them. Every senator who had voted for the Verdant 7 strike, every military officer who had carried out the attack, every bureaucrat who had processed the orders, every official who had created the integration program. Beside each name was a date. Some of the dates had already passed. Those names were crossed out. Recognize them as the officials who had already died, the ones whose deaths had prompted this mission. But most of the names were still unmarked, still waiting. At the bottom of the list was a single sentence in human script. Had to use the translation system to read it. "Tell them I am coming." She stared at those words for a long time. She thought about the 7 hunters who had entered that station, the best killers she had ever known. 4 of them were dead. 2 were broken. And the human who had done this was still out there, with a list of names and all the time in the universe. His voice came from behind her, weak but angry. "Report this to High Command. Tell them we found her. Tell them she is more dangerous than expected but can still be killed." "Can she?" asked quietly. "She is one human. Send more hunters. Send soldiers. Send a fleet if necessary. She cannot fight an army." Turn to face him. She just defeated the Brotherhood, the most feared hunter team in 3 galaxies. She killed 4 of us and left the rest broken. And she did it alone, with traps made from scrap metal and a blade she probably made herself. She pulled up the list on the main display so could see it. "There are 300 names on this list. If we send more hunters, she will kill them too. If we send soldiers, she will disappear and strike somewhere else. She is not fighting a war. She is fighting a grudge, and humans do not let go of grudges." His eyes burned with hatred, but he was too weak to argue. His species did not understand retreat. They did not understand failure, but even he could not deny what had happened. Began composing her report to the Concordat High Command. She detailed everything, the trap, the darkness, the way had used the environment against them. She described the humans' tactics, her patience, her complete lack of fear. And at the end, she added her recommendation. "Do not send more hunters. Every hunter you send becomes a lesson. Every failure makes her stronger. She wants you to come after her. She wants to teach your best warriors what humans can do. Find another way, or prepare for a war you do not understand." She transmitted the report and waited. The response came within hours. The Concordat had reviewed her assessment and rejected it completely. The idea that one human could pose a serious threat to the Empire was absurd. The Brotherhood had clearly underestimated their target. Better hunters would succeed where they had failed. They were dispatching the Crimson Order, an elite military unit with 200 soldiers. They would sweep the outer reach and eliminate the human threat within a standard month. Read the orders and felt something she had never felt before. Pity, not for the human, but for the soldiers who were about to be sent against her. "They are not listening," said quietly. It was the first thing he had spoken since leaving the station. His voice was hollow. "They do not understand." "They are the Concordat," replied. They have ruled for 12,000 years. They have never encountered anything they could not crush with overwhelming force. They have never encountered humans. Thought about that. Humans had been part of the Concordat for barely 2 centuries. They had been quiet, obedient, invisible. No one had bothered to study them closely. No one had wondered what they might be capable of if pushed too far. Verdant 7 had been meant as a demonstration, a reminder of Concordat power. Instead, it had created something the Empire had never faced before. A human with nothing left to lose, and nothing to do but fight. The Crimson Order deployed 3 weeks later, 200 of the Concordat's finest soldiers, equipped with the best weapons and armor available. They searched the outer reach system by system, station by station. They found the derelict station where the Brotherhood had fought. They found evidence of the battle, the bodies of the fallen hunters, the traps that had been left behind. They studied everything carefully and prepared themselves. Then they began hunting. For 2 months there was no contact. The human had disappeared completely. The Concordat began to believe she had fled, perhaps left known space entirely. They declared the mission a success and recalled half the Crimson Order. That was when the killings resumed. A senator on the core worlds died in his sleep, his security systems disabled, a piece of paper on his chest. An admiral vanished from his flagship and was found days later floating in an escape pod, alive but unable to speak about what had happened to him. A bureaucrat who had signed the Verdant 7 orders was discovered in his office with his list carved into his desk. The remaining Crimson Order soldiers were sent to protect key targets. It did not help. Struck where they were not. She killed officials on worlds hundreds of light years apart within days of each other. She appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. And every time she killed, she left the same message. Remember. Watched the reports come in from her ship, still drifting in the outer reach while healed. She had not returned to Concordat space. She did not want to be near what was coming. Because she understood now what was doing. She was not just killing for revenge. She was sending a message to everyone who watched. Every species that had ever been crushed by the Concordat. Every world that had learned to bow and submit and survive. She was showing them that the Concordat could bleed. And somewhere in the galaxy, other humans were listening. Other survivors from Verdant 7 who had been off-world when the strike happened. Other humans from other colonies who had watched the news reports and felt something stir in their hearts. Was not trying to destroy the Concordat alone. She knew that was impossible. She was trying to light a spark. 5 years passed. The Concordat sent 18 hunter teams after during that time. The best trackers, the deadliest killers, the most advanced soldiers. Each team was better equipped and better prepared than the last. Each team had studied the failures of those who came before. 17 of those teams were found drifting in space, their ships empty, their crews gone. No bodies were ever recovered. No final transmissions were ever recorded. They simply vanished, leaving nothing but silent vessels orbiting dead worlds. The 18th team was never found at all. Meanwhile, the list grew shorter. Senators died in their beds. Admirals disappeared from guarded fortresses. The general who had commanded the Verdant 7 strike fleet was found in his private garden with a human poem carved into the stone beside his body. Something about rage and the dying of light. The Concordat tried everything. They doubled security. They moved their officials constantly. They built bunkers deep beneath planetary surfaces. None of it worked. Found them wherever they hid. She had become something more than human in their minds, a ghost, a demon, a force of nature that could not be stopped. They called her a terrorist, a monster, an abomination. The humans who heard the stories called her something else. The Unbroken. Her name spread through refugee stations and hidden colonies. Humans whispered it to each other in the darkness, their voices filled with something they had not felt in generations. Hope. pride, defiance. She proved that humans were not just a labor species. She proved that they could fight back. She proved that even the mighty Concordat could be hurt by someone who refused to give up. And others began to follow her example. A retired soldier named had been working on a mining station when Verdant 7 burned. He had lost his sister and her children in the attack. For years, he had done nothing, too afraid to act, too broken to believe he could make a difference. Then he heard about. Started small. He smuggled weapons to human settlements that wanted to defend themselves. He created hidden routes through Concordat space where refugees could travel without being monitored. He built a network of contacts who shared information and resources. He never met, he never tried to, but everything he did was because of her. A doctor named had been living on a core world when the integration program began. She had watched human children being taken from their families, and she had done nothing because she was afraid. The guilt had eaten at her for years. When she heard about, something changed inside her. She started treating wounded rebels in secret. She stole medical supplies from Concordat hospitals. She saved lives that the Empire wanted to end. A pilot named had grown up on a human colony world where everyone kept their heads down and followed the rules. He had been taught that resistance was suicide, that humans could never fight the Concordat. Then he heard about the hunter teams, 18 of the deadliest squads in the galaxy sent against one human woman, 17 found empty, one never found at all. Started flying supply runs through Concordat blockades. He dared them to catch him. When patrols stopped his ship and demanded to know who he was working for, he just smiled and said 4 words. You know who. The Concordat tried to stop the spread of legend. They censored news reports. They punished anyone who spoke her name. They declared that she had been killed months ago and that anyone claiming otherwise was spreading dangerous lies. No one believed them. How could they? Every few weeks, another official from the Verdant 7 list would die. Each death was a reminder that was still out there. Each death was proof that the Concordat was not as powerful as they claimed. The Empire had wanted to make an example of Verdant 7. They had wanted to show the galaxy what happened to species that them. They had burned 6,000 innocent people to teach everyone a lesson. They succeeded. But the lesson the galaxy learned was not the one the Concordat intended. The lesson was simple: humans do not break. You can burn their homes, you can slaughter their families, you can hunt them across the stars, and they will not stop. They will not forgive, they will not forget. They will carve your name into a list, and they will cross it out, one by one, until the list is empty or they are dead. And sometimes, just sometimes, they win. The silent verdict still orbits the derelict station in the outer reach. Its beacon pulses endlessly into the void, an automated distress signal that no one will ever answer, and an abandoned it years ago, unable to bear the reminder of what had happened there. Inside, the ship is empty, pristine. The hunter's personal belongings remain untouched. Their beds are still made. Their weapons are still mounted on the walls. Everything is exactly as they left it, preserved by the cold vacuum of space. It has become a landmark now, a place where human ships sometimes stop on their way through the outer reach. They do not board the vessel or disturb its contents. They simply drift beside it for a few minutes, paying their respects to the place where everything changed. Some say visits occasionally, that she sits in the captain's chair and looks out at the stars, remembering the night she taught the galaxy's greatest hunters what it meant to be prey. But no one knows for certain. No one ever sees her coming or going. The Concordat still rules the stars. Their fleets still darken the skies of 1,000 worlds, but something has changed. A crack has appeared in their armor that cannot be repaired. An idea has taken root that cannot be burned away. Humans are not a labor species anymore. They are something else, something dangerous, something that even the mightiest empire in the galaxy has learned to fear. And it all started with one woman who had nothing left to lose. This list has 73 names remaining. She is patient. She has time. The Concordat officials who ordered the destruction of Verdant 7 live in constant fear, never knowing when their door will open in the darkness and reveal a human woman with empty eyes and a blade in her hand. Some of them have gone mad from the waiting. Some have fled to the farthest edges of known space. Some have even tried to negotiate, to apologize, to offer anything in exchange for their names being removed from the list. Does not negotiate. She does not forgive. She does not stop. Because she remembers. She remembers her parents and her little brother Minu and her friend, and all the other people who burned on Verdant 7. She remembers the screaming and the static and the silence that followed. She carries that memory with her like a fire in her chest. It keeps her warm in the cold darkness of space. It gives her strength when her body wants to quit. It reminds her why she fights. The Concordat built their empire on fear. They believed that fear was the ultimate weapon, that nothing could stand against a force that inspired such terror. They were wrong. There is something stronger than fear. There is love. There is grief. There is the human need to protect the people we care about and to avenge them when they are gone. The Concordat killed 6,000 humans on Verdant 7. They thought they were ending a problem. Instead, they created. And is just the beginning. Across the galaxy, humans are waking up. They are organizing. They are preparing. They look at the stars and they no longer see an empire too powerful to challenge. They see a future worth fighting for. And they know, deep in their hearts, that if one human woman can make the Concordat tremble, then anything is possible. The silent verdict continues its endless orbit. Its beacon pulses on, and somewhere in the darkness is hunting. She has 73 names left. She has all the time in the universe. And she never forgets. And fires spread. She wanted to show them what a human could do.